X-Men 97 was an absolute triumph in style and execution. And I just want to talk about 3 to 5 lessons that every writer can learn from it. 1, do not judge your characters. We've seen villains before. We've seen Magneto before. I've not seen him like this before. And I think the main difference here is that the writers sort of hand Magneto the microphone, and you find that his ideology is the most predominantly voiced in the series, and sort of the Professor X side of things comes as a last minute rebuttal at the end. But for the most part, the microphone is Magneto from start to finish. And I think writers can learn from this in that let your villain talk. Very often, we're a bit anxious because we obviously think the bad guy is wrong. That's why we cast him as the bad guy in the first place, right? But you see with stories like The Dark Knight, with Infinity War, when you give the villain, you even see this with Black Panther, when you give the villain center stage and let them talk, even give them the floor, give them the microphone even more than your hero, what happens is it's not just the plot we are anticipating. We start anticipating the theme as well. Most times the plot is in the forefront and the theme is in the background, and it's sort of not your preoccupation. Your preoccupation is with the plot. But where you have, say, a Killmonger, a Joker, a Magneto, you let them talk, and like 2/3 of the series is them drilling their ideology to their heads. Not only are we looking for the resolution in the punchy fight, we are looking for the resolution in the argument, in the ideas portion, right? And that adds another layer of tension. So I'm not just looking for, will the X-Men punch out and come out alive? I'm also looking for, wait, Magneto is cooking here, like Joker is cooking, or like Killmonger is cooking. What do you have to say, right? What are you gonna say to convince me? Because I don't know, it's kind of making sense now. And you sort of bring the theme from a background into one of the layers of tension, and you're anticipating just as much as the plot part of things. That is what you get when you give the villain the microphone. 2 is it helps your sort of flat character arcs. What I mean by this, now we've heard a lot of talk about how characters with flat character arcs, like a Superman or a Captain America, boring, right? And when you let the villain have the microphone, what happens is characters with a flat character arc, meaning they do not change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. These are characters that their motivation does not change. What you do when you give the villain the microphone is that you create a brilliant foil for the villain, and so they serve as a contrast. And so they might not even have a full character arc. They might not even do anything particularly that much, but just by being a foil, they instantly stand out, right? And a good example of this is Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. Now we get a bit of backstory from him in the later movies, but for the most part, he just serves as a foil for what total corruption and lust for power looks like, and stands in contrast to the hobbits who are trying not to descend into that form. So he, throughout their journeys by the hobbits, as a metaphorical reminder of the worst form that they could become, right? Yes. Even when you have a character in the story that doesn't change, that person can be instantly memorable to your audience and will stick simply by contrasting. And just by contrast, even without taking them to a character, simply by that contrast, they are instantly memorable, right? Professor X, though he goes through a bit of a character arc, choosing to remain with his lover, his standout moment is his sort of counseling, teaching session with Magneto where he talks him off the ledge, right? And that is the highlight moment, even though the professor for that particular storyline doesn't have much of a discernible character arc himself, right? And that is an example of like flat arcs that the two sides don't change, but is immensely compelling for millions of people. And the reason is simply that the great opposition, right? The great opposition leaves the audience wondering whether or not my character will pull through. And so there, you don't even need an arc from changing to one state to a different set of beliefs, from one set of beliefs to a different set of beliefs / motivations. You simply use what I call a rubber band effect, stretching a rubber band to its limit, and then the rubber band snaps back at the end, right? The mere presence of great opposition that is very compelling sort of like takes the guardrails off, creates tension, making the audience wonder, wait, how is this guy gonna stand by his values in this sort of diametrically opposed situation to what he believes? That is testing his beliefs in an environment that are entirely hostile to his beliefs. How will a Superman, a Batman, a Professor X in this situation, how can he pull us back? And it's especially great in Professor X's case because he is historically known for just yapping. And I think they will poke fun at that in the series when Magneto tells him to shut up. He is historically known that his real superpower in effect is the pep talk. And here it is taken out of the realm of cliche, because even though you know he does the pep talk thing, this time you are anticipating it, you are thirsty for it, because Magneto has yapped so long and you are on the verge of crossing the carpet to join him at this point. And for a while I thought this would be the first X-Men media where the conclusion is we agree with Magneto. I genuinely did not know which side the series will come down on. I genuinely, that's for the first time, did not know, right? The next thing that writers can learn is pairing the strange and the familiar. This is something often talked about, and it ties into the whole concept of write what you know, right? Now, many people misunderstand that, and they think it means to only write plot structures that you have hands-on experience with. And I don't think that's the case. For me, that means write things with an emotional through line that you can connect with, right? We've never had superpowers before. We've never had metal claws before. We've never been able to teleport before. We've never had weather controlling powers before. But we have experienced heartbreak. We've fallen in and out of love. We've lost family. We've lost people. We've experienced loss. We've experienced jealousy. We've experienced pride. We've experienced hate. We've experienced loneliness. We've experienced camaraderie. We've experienced best friends. We've experienced losing mentors. We've experienced victory. We've experienced defeat. Those through lines, those emotional through lines, that is write what you know. Write the emotional through lines that you have felt. And to the extent that we have bits of every emotion within us, you can write anything so long as that emotional baseline is there. And to write from by leaning into those impulses and being vulnerable and teasing out the elements of those sometimes unpleasant impulses that you find within you. That is part of what they pull off with X-Men 97, leaning into the soap opera Riverdale-esque aspect of the comics where everyone is dating each other and breaking up with each other, that whole drama, right? And making the metaphors even more real by use of their powers. For example, Rogue ends up dating Magneto because he can touch her in ways that Gambit can't. Implications of that are very obvious, but this is something that happens in real life. And here, with the veneer of superpowers, you can communicate a reality in an even more concrete way by making the metaphor literal. And we see that when Magneto can literally touch her in ways that Gambit can't, and that makes the metaphor hit even harder than it would have if you're writing a story where no one had powers, right? And that is where fantasy science fiction has a big advantage, and I think all writers in that genre should lean into it because that is your strength. Another example is how Cyclops is cheating on his girlfriend in his dream with his girlfriend's clone, and the girlfriend sort of walks in on his brain and catches him. Where else but in speculative fiction can you do that? And now most people watching, everyone watching, has never had that experience before of having powers, but you know what losing a love feels like, or getting cheated on feels like. That sort of popular imagination that is very common in rom-coms and like these very popular forms of entertainment, reality TV. These are like the popular entertainment that the mass amount of people consumes, and people who write speculative fiction, sci-fi and fantasy often look at that as lowbrow, but it's actually things that connect to our fundamental emotions as human, themes of love and loss and connecting to someone, and jealousy and hate and greed. Those situations where the narrative implications are sort of obvious, right? It's not obvious what the immediate implications of, say, fancy sci-fi power is, but it is immediately obvious to people what trouble there is in your boyfriend cheating on someone. Possible conflict is immediately, instantly apparent, something you can instantly connect to very easily, right? And so you need to tap into that, because those quote-unquote low-brow sorts of art that people look down on, they're popular for a reason, and that is the reason that it's a good story, even though it might be crafted in ways that are cliche, but it's a good story. It's a good story, and it's like instantly relatable because it's tapping into those primal things. And so for writers, pair the strange and the familiar. If you're doing a magic system or you introducing a set of abilities, think to yourself, what real life things can I map this onto? Real life relationships can I map this onto? Is this like having a brother? Is this relationship map onto the feeling of having a girlfriend? Does this relationship map onto the feeling of having an annoying teacher? Does this relationship map onto the feeling of having to take care of your grandparents? You will find that strange elements of your story will map onto certain real life relationships, and that is where you hook your audience, and they come for those things, but they will stay for the things you lay on top, because those things you lay on top, the magic systems, powers, the complex histories, enrich that experience. But those imaginations, those instantly relatable conflicts, relationship dynamics is what opens the door for them to come in, stay around for the highbrow, high concept stuff. And that is all. In case you're interested in this channel, like, subscribe, and stick around for more like this. Bye bye.